What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise Postgame show. The Blazers win their fourth game in a row. This time they avenge a close earlier season loss to the Boston Celtics. This time the Blazers are able to pull away late and get the win. The wins keep getting a little better. This is a solid, good Boston Celtics team. I don't think their record indicates how good of a team this is. So this is a good win that the Blazers were able to get. You had Damian Lillard, Norman Powell, CJ McCollum, and Yusuf Nurkic all having good games. I think this game showcased the level of talent that we have on this team, and we're going to break things down for you as always. Hope everybody's days are going well. Hope you guys enjoyed this game. This was definitely a fun one to watch. Eric, what are your what's kind of the main theme from this game that you take away from it?
My main theme is, wow, this team still has the potential to be good, in my opinion. I like when they play this way. I don't think they made a lot of the smartest decisions in this game, but a lot of them worked out for us, so can't really complain too much about that. I like the defensive attitude of Dame wanting to guard the best player on the other team. Don't know if we can get away with him guarding, forwards and centers or stuff like that, but this is something that I've wanted to see with Dame is don't hide him. Let him sink or swim himself on defense and let him take on those challenges. And this is part of being held accountable, is also stepping up and wanting assignments and guarding players like that. So I don't know if it's the smartest idea to have him guard Tatum, but it certainly worked out in this game. And I like the mindset of him wanting that challenge in the second half. Again, I don't understand why it took this long into the season for this kind of effort and accountability and seeming willingness from this team to want to have these kind of performances and play this way, but better late than never, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging if you're hoping to make a playoff run, which I think most people in here are hoping they do. Obviously, we've been pretty outspoken on we want a different guy in charge as the head coach, but I don't want that at the expense of team success this year. So it's encouraging and nice to see this team finally start to figure things out. It'll remain baffling as to why it didn't happen before, because this team looks all of a sudden just bought in, accountable, playing with a consistent level of energy, and that was a huge problem all year long. And it never made sense to me.
Just a week ago, we're talking about how no one's bought in. They look like they've given up on the season, and we're questioning their effort and stuff when they have to win some of those games. It makes no sense to just all of a sudden turn that switch on, but I guess here we are.
Yeah, and, we have some tough games coming up, and we've had good stretches this season. Now, we had a 6-game winning streak earlier this season that was against 5 bad teams in the Dallas Mavericks. So now the Blazers have a 4-game winning streak. One is against an average Memphis Grizzlies team. One is against a G League level Pacers team. They had 3 of their best players out. One was against the Brooklyn Nets, missing 2 stars. And then one tonight is against the Celtics. They're missing Kemba Walker, but it's still a good Celtics team. They have Tatum, they have Brown, and we won it in pretty impressive fashion. This was a game where a guy like Jason Tatum hit a bunch of tough shots. Boston had a good offensive game, and the Blazers were still able to pull away late, due in part because they had a good offensive game themselves. The Blazers end up shooting, if my phone screen would scroll here, The Blazers end up shooting 52% from the field and 50% from three. They're 19 for 38 from the three-point line. Now, leaves you with the feeling like, okay, can they win a game against a good team if the threes aren't falling? That remains to be seen. If the threes weren't falling this game, we're probably talking about a different story. But we have one of the best shooting teams in the league, so it was very entertaining to see Norm have a good game, Dame have a good game, Nurkic have a good game, and CJ have a good game. All four of those guys had good games tonight. We are a very tough team to beat if all four of those guys have good offensive games. Even if we don't play a lick of defense, if those four guys play well, we're going to be in games and competitive. Now, you can't expect that every night, so that's something going forward. We still have things that we need to work on, but overall, really good offensive game, really entertaining shootout between both teams in this one. The Celtics, for their own right, shoot 51% from three. They're 20 for 39. Not encouraging for the Blazers defense, but there was some tough shots made by Tatum. There was some contested shots made in this game. Blazers still got work to do on that end, but the offense, the past three games, Eric, they've scored 128 points or more.
And you mentioned those four players who played really well. I'd also include Melo in that tonight. I felt like he had a really solid game. Didn't force a lot of ISO shots. He did a couple times in the first half, but he made his first two, so you knew that was going to come a little bit.
Yeah, you can also toss Covington into there. Covington 3 for 6 from three tonight, has 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 blocks. Covington had a good game as well.
And so I started tracking this with about 3 minutes left. I think we're up 4, or it might have been up 3 at the time, something like that. And I wanted to see what our possessions would look like the last few minutes, right? And we have this Dame ISO / pick and roll where he is fighting the shot clock still near half court, drives, and then that's when he lost the ball off his leg or off his foot. And then the next possession was just a Dame straight ISO. And then the next possession was, it looked like it was just going to be a CJ ISO, but he couldn't get around his guys. So he ended up passing to Nurk, and that's when he got the smart ejection, which we'll have to talk about the refs in this game in a minute for both sides. But then the next possession, it seemed like we were just going to run the same old Dame pick and roll. But then there's this guy, Melo, wide open for 3. And Dame finds him. Dame at the time had 13 assists, I think. I don't know if he finished with 13. He
finished with 13 assists.
Yeah. But, like, this is how you need to use Melo. Like, if you leave him open, he's going to knock down that shot most of the time in that situation. And if you don't leave him open, that leaves other players open. If you have action like we had, especially in the first half of this game, we ran a lot of off-ball action, which I'm not accustomed to seeing. And that will free up other people because he usually gravitates the defense. And if he doesn't gravitate the defense towards him, that's what happens. They leave him open and he hits a 3. So I like him in those situational things, and I think he still has, no matter what you think of him, I think he still has uses in those kind of situations. When our offense is struggling, just like run a play, but run it designed to see if they're looking at Melo or not, and if not, let him hit a clutch shot. And if they would have ran out on him faster, he could have swung it to Norm in the corner. I think was wide open on that one as well. But yeah, it's just like our guards don't have to hit tough shots. But I'm still worried that in these late game situations, we're a little too ISO one-on-one pick and roll heavy without much action, like had worked in the rest of the game. But once again, it's hard to question it when it works out yet again tonight.
Yeah. It's the offense looks better, and the offense is always going to look better when they're making shots, but I feel like the quality of their 3-point shots has gone up recently, and that's because they they've been moving the ball better, and they haven't been settling for tough shots. That's kind of my issue. My issue throughout the season and in previous seasons has been a couple different things that leads to contested shots. One is they enter their offense, or they start their offense with like 15 on the shot clock. They just walk the ball up very casually and waste a bunch of shot clock just bringing the ball up and initiating things. I think that's something that's gotten better, so they're giving themselves a little bit more shot clock to work with. I also think they're not, necessarily, they're making the extra pass a little bit more. They're not getting tunnel visioned and trying to force offense and pulling up for contested shots. Now, there's still moments with certain players on this team that do that, but overall, it's a situation where guys are making the right pass, the extra pass. Guys aren't over dribbling quite as much as they were earlier this season, and that's something that we said needed to take place if this offense is going to have any chance of being great in the playoffs. Is you can't isolate like crazy, you can't pound the air out of the ball, you can't be completely stagnant, and we've seen progress with that. And I don't think it's a surprise that we are in our best 3-game offensive stretch of the season, in which we scored 129 points tonight, and we scored 128 and 130 points in the 2 games before this. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think you see the way this offense is functioning, and I feel like it doesn't take somebody that's super well versed in the game of basketball to notice that this offense looks a little bit different as of late. Now, some people will say that's having Jusuf Nurkic back. I do think that's part of it, but I also think it's, having Jusuf Nurkic on the floor instead of Enes Kanter probably isn't going to be the difference maker in whether or not CJ McCollum takes 10 dribbles and then shoots a pull-up mid-range jump shot. You know what I mean?
Because we still have possessions like that when the bench unit's in with Cantor and CJ and all that stuff.
Yeah, but I feel like even with the bench unit, it's slightly better. The bench unit we'll have to talk about. I mean, defensively has been the issue with the bench unit. It just seems like this team is collectively playing less selfish, and Nurkic called it out a while ago, said they felt like they were playing a little too selfish offensively. I think this team is playing much more unselfish or selfless basketball, whatever you want to say. And I think you see a guy like Norm, it seems like he has a little bit more energy. He's a little bit more into the game. His body language is better. I think that's a product of the offense isn't as selfish, because Norm isn't really a selfish player. He's not a guy that's going to pound the air out of the ball. He's going to catch the ball and make a decision, a quick decision, and he's going to go with this. So I think the ball movement helps him out in that regard. He's not a guy who's going to isolate and break down somebody one-on-one. So I think that was kind of the issue, and why his body language seemed bad, is that's kind of what the offense was like when he got here. We've seen positive progress, and I think that's helped the offense get better shots and in turn just have better offensive games.
And to your point earlier about the slowing the ball up in those situations, and it might benefit them to push the ball up. So we get a stop and I forgot if it was a steal or like a deflection out to Norm, but he gets the ball and just races down and scores lay-in on the other end, and that pretty much sealed the game. Whereas a lot of times we would just slow it down and then, take a bad shot or whatever. So I love the aggression there to push the ball and put the game away rather than play conservatively and play not to lose or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. Norm has been aggressive, taking the ball to the rack. That's why I like the pickup. We saw it again tonight. He was 4 for 6 from 3. It was good to see Norman hit some 3-point shots, but he was 4 for 9 inside the arc, got to the line 4 times. So not necessarily the most efficient 2-point night, but I've just liked his aggressiveness. It's nice to have another guy on the court with Damon CJ that can not only shoot the 3-ball at a high level, which we kind of haven't seen yet, but he is a very good 3-point shooter, but then also a guy that can attack the rim if he gets ran off the 3-point line. It's just nice to have that type of guy next to Damon CJ, because we haven't really had that before.
Yep, but he's undersized, so it won't matter, right?
Yeah, undersized, even though his standing reach is like 8'7". That people, okay. You shouldn't have even said that, because here's a little 15-second rant. Don't base size off of height. Base size off of standing reach, okay? You don't rebound the ball with the top of your head. You rebound the ball with your hands when you're reaching up. So if you have longer arms, you're going to play bigger. Gary Trent Jr. listed as 6'5", okay? His standing reach, I think it was a little flawed, but was 8'2". Coming into the draft. Norman Powell's 8'7", even though he's 2 inches shorter than Gary Trent Jr. So Norm has better size than Gary Trent Jr., but people just look at height and say he's undersized. That's a pet peeve of mine.
And I believe it's only an inch shorter than Aaron Gordon. So
yeah, so there you go. In Aaron Gordon, everybody wanted him at the 4. So yeah.
Let's get to this dono real quick. Joshua Collins, Australian $10 dono. Thanks, man. What's up? He says, I woke up, ordered a tub of ice cream and lollies from Uber Eats, and watched the game. Meanwhile, I have an assessment due tomorrow that I haven't started. Watching the stream is worth it, though.
Hey, man, don't let us tank your grade, bro. Appreciate the dono, but don't let us tank your grade, man.
You had ice cream and lollies for breakfast, I guess.
That's not. Hey, man, that sounds like a pretty good, healthy breakfast to me. That's the way to go. I mean, I haven't had ice cream in a while. I had ice cream last week. What am I talking about? But ice cream does sound good right now. I haven't eaten today, man. Quit talking about food, all right? 'Cause I'm hungry. I need to eat after this. Need to figure out what's for dinner. I probably won't go the ice cream route. But ice cream does sound pretty good right now.
Yeah. And then shout out to my boy Nautran. That's one of my friends. He became a starter.
Friends?
Yep, I do.
Cool. Congrats. Appreciate the starter membership. Sorry,
I was going to say something really mean, but I'll take the high road.
Yeah. I mean, I just had to toss it out there, man. But yeah, so what else did you think of this game? What do you want to talk about next? Because there's a couple different topics. It could be something other than this, but I definitely want to talk about the refs, and I definitely want to talk about Enes Kanter.
Let's address the refs first. Okay. So during the game, I thought the one call they got right was the Norm one. I didn't think that was a flagrant because when you get knocked into someone or someone hits you below and your arms come down, that's just a natural reaction. I didn't think that was swinging his elbow into Smart's face on purpose. But I mean, they missed two calls. They called 2 offensive goaltending on Boston. The first one was fairly close, by the letter of the law, I guess maybe, but there is some leeway. If it's rolling off the rim, you can still touch it. It's not like a cut and dry area. So I felt like it was rolling off the rim enough to where that call could have probably gone either way. If it would have been interesting to see what they ruled if they actually reviewed it. But the second one was really bad. That should have been a dunk by Tristan Thompson, and that they definitely screwed them there. But then at the end of the game, Dame doesn't get a charge call, which was ridiculous. Tatum even knew he committed a charge, and was I don't know, that was 100% a charge. And then the other one, Pritchard sliding into him, slides his feet into the restricted area too. Dame tries to go around him and mostly avoids him and hits him from the side, kind of. And I don't know. I hate that charge call as a basketball player. When you drive and you have someone slide into it like that, I hate when I get called for the foul when you're trying to avoid them too at the same time, you know?
Yeah. I mean, those 2 charges should have been called the opposite way as far as I'm concerned. I also thought the Nurkic offensive foul, I don't think it was he slid into the screen, but they 90% of the time they let that go with a minute and a half, 2 minutes left in the game. You look at the Golden State Warriors when they made their championship runs, man. I wish they got called for moving screens, dude. They would pass block and not get called for moving screens offensively. And Nurkic slid into a little bit, but A, normally they wouldn't call that, so I felt like that was just a ticky-tack call. And B, the contact with Marcus Smart's arm to his area, all right, that happened before the body to body contact to the moving screen. the foul call is supposed to be for what contact occurs first.
Yep.
If somebody's moving the screen and you lead with an elbow into their face and hit their face first before they hit you, the play is dead right there. Offensive foul, you elbowed them in the face, right? So that was a bad call, okay? Like, it should have been a foul on Smart, okay?
Yeah.
But then they call a technical and eject him, which I thought was a little extra. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So, flagrant foul would be a foul during the play, right? And technical is something that happens, like if you would have hit him in the nuts afterwards, right? So, like, it didn't make sense to me. Like you said, they reviewed it for what seemed like 5 minutes. They couldn't tell that the hit to the lower section happened before that. Like, so I don't get calling a technical on him, and I don't get how it's a foul on Nurk if that contact warranted a technical foul, and it came before Nurk made contact with him. So, it should have been, I mean, I guess maybe at worst like a double foul or something, and then a technical on Smart afterwards, but it doesn't make sense to just give him a technical and just give Nurk a common foul.
They took so long to review that, too.
Yeah.
That's also the problem I had with it. This game had a great flow to it, a great offensive flow to it. And the refs took that away in the final 2.5 minutes, and it was a shame. They reviewed that play for what felt like a year. They called, I don't know, there was a couple calls there that I didn't think should have been called. The Peyton Pritchard call was definitely a block. He slid his feet into the restricted circle. There's a charge against Dame. I know there's another call I'm forgetting that I felt like should have went uncalled, but I just felt like the flow to this game just completely halted. And maybe that was a good thing for the Blazers because they were the ones who came out in those final 2 minutes with some buckets, with some plays to pull away in the final stretch. So, maybe it was a good thing for the Blazers. It was just this game had such a good rhythm to it and a good flow to it. And the shot making was very impressive from both sides that I kind of wish that flow carried on throughout the rest of the game.
Well, I mean, Dame played over 39 minutes, so maybe that rest was good, like you said. CJ played over 37, Powell 38 minutes, so yeah, I guess maybe it was good to have.
Yeah.
Because there was a stretch during that time, too, where Boston called a timeout, and then we called a timeout right after that. So between those and that long review, there was a lot of dead time to relax a little bit. But, I don't know. I thought because until those last few minutes, I was gonna say like we might have gotten away with one tonight with some of those calls, but I thought it evened out with some of the bad calls towards the end. But the Smart ejection was not. I mean, it's hard to tell it if someone like is doing that on purpose in that situation. I guess you could always err on the side of they're doing it on purpose, especially someone with Smart's reputation. I guess kind of like Draymond Green effect, but. I don't know. I didn't think that was worthy of an ejection at that point.
Yep. So I'm gonna take a couple donations unless there's another call that you.
No, I just want to say real quick, Dallas just lost. That's one of the donations.
I was gonna read the Jimmy Cleveland donation first. Yes, and then I was gonna read. You have no clues. Yes, we are on the same page. Jimmy Cleveland $5 dono, appreciate it. Said, and so Dallas just lost to the Kings, and Luka just got ejected when the game was done. Luka gets a lot of technicals for a guy that seems like a nice guy. So he gets ejected after the game.
Ejected after the game.
I mean, that's confusing to me. I'll have to look at that. I mean, I didn't even know that was possible, but
I wonder what his technical count is because that could affect playoffs or because there's a certain amount of games you get suspended for after a certain amount of techs.
Yep. So the Blazers are now currently in 6th place in the West. They are. Let me pull up the standings. Are they tied with Dallas?
I think they moved a half game ahead of them. If I'm not mistaken.
And they do have the tiebreaker with Dallas. That's one of the few teams we have the tiebreaker with in the Western Conference since we've really struggled against Western Conference playoff teams. My ESPN app, it doesn't like me right now, apparently. But yeah, so the Blazers are now in 6th place. It's going to be interesting to watch this race as it goes down the wire. The Mavericks have some easy games coming up, but if Luka is getting close on his technical count and might get suspended for a game, then, maybe, I don't know, maybe they drop games. And Dallas is a team that has lost against bad teams this year, it seems like. It seems like they have some very questionable losses. Like they're the type of team, much like we have been in the past, to kind of play down to their opposition. So although they do have an easy schedule, I wonder if there's going to be a couple more games like the one tonight where they lose against the Kings. The Kings have been playing decently lately. I got to give them credit. De'Aaron Fox has been hurt, and they've still been playing solid basketball. So shout out to the Kings. But Tyrese Halliburton's been a big part of that. Hopefully his injury that he went down with isn't serious today. But I mean, it'll be interesting just to see how Dallas performs against teams that they should beat, but have kind of had trouble with this year.
Yeah, and so someone's saying that Luka's now one tech away from triggering a automatic 1-game suspension. So he's at 15 and at 16 is the nice.
Good research.
Yeah, it looks like depending on what happens with the Lakers, we might be in a 3-way tie.
Don't know how that would sort itself out. And it doesn't even matter necessarily at this point how that tie would sort itself out. Basically, right now, it looked like we were going to fall into a race for 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Like, we were in danger of falling to 9th or 10th before this 4-game winning streak. Now we're kind of in a 3-way battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th with the Lakers and with the Mavericks. And the Blazers do have a game coming up against the Mavericks. Or not against the Mavericks, against the Lakers. So they win that game, there's a chance they could get 5th. Denver's been playing well. Denver could be the 3 seed. So Portland could luck itself into a first-round matchup against the Nuggets, which they've played great without Jamal Murray, but out of the 4 teams between the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Suns, and the Jazz, I would take the Denver Nuggets, man. I mean, we have a more talented team than they do right now. I don't think there's any question. We would be the more talented team in that series. Now, could we win that series? Obviously, that remains to be seen, but I mean, it's a matchup that I would like our chances going into the first round against.
I think you're forgetting that Denver traded for the second coming of Rasheed Wallace and Aaron Gordon.
Oh my goodness! Don't even start with the. That man. You're trying to. Are you trying, bro? We beat the Celtics by 10. And you're trying to get me ranting, okay? Just let me be happy, okay? Don't make me think about Aaron freaking Gordon, all right? Appreciate it. Oh man, yeah.
But how would we win a series though?
Just stop. I will mute you. Let's just.
I just want to clear something up because I also would love to play Denver, but like I got Reese saying telling me earlier, you guys are really underrating Denver or whatever. It's not. These are all tough teams to play. Like, obviously, we wouldn't want to play any of them if we didn't have to. But Denver, I think we can, with our defensive schemes and without Jamal Murray being there to exploit some of those in a pick and roll, we still have issues, with the pick and pop with Jokic or trying to defend him and stuff like that, especially since he's a bigger guy who can pass over the top of a double team. But I think, in terms of the way we play defense, that's by far the best team we match up with because they don't have that dynamic ball handler right now out of the pick and roll.
And Nurkic would be up for that series against his old team and his old teammate Jokic. I mean,
because he missed the one last time.
Reese, do you think they have a more talented team than us right now? I don't know how anybody could say that, man. They do not have a more talented team than us right now. Like, Jokic has been insane this year. I'll put him and Dame in the same tier. Who's their second best player? Michael Porter Jr.? I'd take CJ over him. Who's their third best player? Aaron Gordon? You know what I mean? Like, I'll take Norman Powell and Jusuf Nurkic over Aaron Gordon 100 times out of 100. Like, no question. They don't have much depth. I think we have more talent off the bench. Now, Enes Kanter, I mean, we'll talk about him in a second. Maybe wouldn't want him to play in the playoffs, but he is a guy who's had success against Denver. in the playoffs for us. So maybe you'd have a good series. I think we have the more talented team than them. Now, would I favor us in a series? That's a different question. Obviously, there's some other variables that go into that. Coaching.
Like
But
what?
yeah, so... But, I mean, I would like our chances against Denver, and then you would potentially have a second-round matchup against Utah or Phoenix. We would have a path and a chance at a Western Conference Finals trip. Now, I wouldn't want that to turn into another 10 years of Terry Stotts, but we do have a path, and there is some encouragement with how the Blazers have played as of late. Let's thank the other dono. You have no clue. $2 dono says, imagine if we had Zach Collins. And I think this, after the Jimmy Cleveland one, even though it came before, because I knew this was going to be a topic of conversation. Oh, excuse me. Messed up my hair with that sneeze. Enes Kanter, all right? I wish we had Zach Collins as the backup center right now instead of Enes Kanter. He'd be a much better fit next to Melo. Enes Kanter today, Eric... Despite us winning by 10, I know the Melo fans want me to point this out, even though if it was Melo that had this plus-minus, they would hate for me to point it out and would trash me for it. But, Enes Kanter, negative 20, despite us winning by 10. We were 30 points better with Enes Kanter off the floor today, Eric, than with him on the floor.
Yeah, and I don't get it. It's... him coming in the game when he did with Melo, like in the first quarter, and then staying in the game in the second quarter with them both, and it's just like, I don't know why we keep going back to it. It's like, for a while we were kind of staggering him a little bit, like Kanter wouldn't come in till like the second quarter or whatever, and we were going small at the beginning, but so Sled for Keck says, why can't we try playing Giles? So this is the problem with not giving Giles an opportunity for that role earlier in the season. I know he got hurt a little bit when Nurkic was out too, but it's to the point now where it's really hard to just throw Giles out there and be like, okay, you're going to get this role all of a sudden and have these minutes with 10 games or less left in the season. That's pretty hard task for any player, let alone a young player who hasn't gotten many minutes this year. So that's why I wish we would have given him a chance to do that, so that by this time of the year we had different lineups we could throw out there when the Kanter thing wasn't working in certain games. But now I feel like we're kind of either forced to go with Kanter or go small with like Hollis Jefferson or Rocco or someone as the center in that lineup. So I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to trying Giles out in some of those situations. I just think it's a lot to ask of him to come in and like save our second unit or something at this point.
Yeah, I mean, or play Rondé Hollis Jefferson, man, or play Nas, or play Derrick Jones Jr. We got 3 athletic defensive wings, defensive forwards that could play some small ball center against a lot of teams, and we don't play them. Nas didn't play today, Derrick Jones Jr. didn't play today, Rondé Hollis Jefferson didn't play today, and I'm just watching this game, and in the first half I said Enes Kanter should not play the second half. And then he plays the second half, same thing happens. We're on a run, okay? Nurkic hits a 3 and has an impressive scoop finish, okay? Then, 6 minutes into the quarter, gets taken out for Enes Kanter. We were up 9, and then immediately Boston comes back and gets right back into the game. And, like, not only did I not want to play Kanter in the second half, given what I saw in the first half, but I also don't understand why he got subbed in so early when Nurkic was starting to get going and when we had a run going. So that whole substitution in the second half, him being subbed in 6 minutes into the second half, was frustrating.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the line of thinking was to bring back Nurk then earlier in the fourth so he could play the rest of the game. but yeah, it's tough. And then Cantor. So what's weird is he kind of traps the first half. Man, he had one play where Tatum comes off a pick and roll, and here's Cantor just sagging back in the paint. Tatum wide open three, splashes it right. And it's like, are you kidding me? This dude scored 60 points last game, and we're like running drop scheme on him in the first half when Cantor comes in. Like, yes, I know he's not the greatest trapper or whatever, but like it's a far better alternative than just like letting a guy like Tatum just walk into a wide open three. And the fact that we're still doing that is quite concerning to me. But then in the second half, he has a play where he kind of traps and Tatum has to take a step back, kind of loses the ball, and Cantor dives on the floor and grabs the ball. That was a huge play in this game. Mm-hmm. And then, but like, it was right before that, Cantor had this play where he was like dropping, and he got caught in the paint, and he didn't know whether to go back to Robert Williams or to get out of the paint. And so he ran out of the paint, but he went to the ball side, and Williams was still on the weak side. And they just like lobbed it up to Williams, and he had a wide open lay-in because Cantor was caught like, in the middle of nowhere.
Well, Marcus Smart was posting up Dame there, and it was like, are they trying to double team that? Which I absolutely wouldn't, because Dame's best quality in terms of his defense is low post defense. He's actually a pretty good low post defender
against guards. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Marcus Smart posting up Dame. Dame can handle that, right? But Cantor runs to double him, and then it's a feed to Robert Williams, and it's an easy dunk. If that was the strategy from the coaching staff, that's just a terrible strategy. If that's just Cantor not knowing what to do, then why is he in the game defensively? Like, it's... He didn't provide us anything offensively today either. Now, when we're shooting well, his value on offense declines, actually, right, because a big part of his offensive value is being able to grab missed shots. So we're shooting the ball well. There's not as many offensive rebounds for him to go get. And when he was on the floor, I'm pretty sure they were out rebounding us anyway. They were able to get some offensive rebounds despite the fact that they were shooting well too. So he didn't really provide the normal things he does offensively, but I'm just watching this game. It's like we have so much offensive talent. We have no issue scoring the ball, and it's just like, man, what if we just had a defensive player out there instead of Enes Kanter that would give us a shot defensively? This could have been a 25-point win if we played Nas or Derrick Jones Jr. or even Rondae Hollis-Jefferson as a small ball center instead of Kanter. I fully believe that, because when Kanter was out of the game, we were dominating them. Okay, Cantor comes in the game, instant run from the Celtics in the second half. I mean, Stotts has to be willing to sit him. Cantor's a good locker room guy. I'm sure he's not going to cause problems. He didn't cause problems in Boston last year when they sat him. And Stotts has to be willing to do that. And I don't know if he's going to be willing to do that, because, I mean, I knew in the second half that Cantor should not play. He gets subbed in, and instantly Celtics go on a run. Like, I saw it coming, and I don't know. Like, does Stotts not see it coming, or does he think it's going to go better? Like, what's his thought process there is what I'm wondering.
Most people have saw that coming all year. But here's what I would do. If you have to play him, right, or you want to get a few minutes with another center in the game, just have him only play in a few minute stretches and let him be aggressive on defense. Don't let him sag and do that crap. Just get him like forcing traps and not sagging in the pick and rolls. And I think he'd be fine for a few minutes, and then you just have to like bide your time for a few minutes while you let your other guys sit. And as Nort gets better, it's just so glaringly obvious that the difference between those two. It's like, well, when Winther Petroy says what happened to the Cantor with 29 rebounds or whatever it is, well, what Torrey just said is the point. Like, when both teams are shooting incredible from the field, there's not rebounds, and that kind of defeats the purpose. And you give up 71 in the first half, so you need to play great defense in the second half, which we did for the most part. But like that's yeah, we don't need Cantor in a game like this, in my opinion. I agree with you there.
Yeah, the less rebounds there are, the less valuable a good rebounder is. So
but Jordan Kent had the absolute line of the year tonight. Did you see that?
I saw people talking about it, but I didn't hear it when it happened.
Oh yeah. So Cantor came in at the end of the quarter on a defensive possession. And he said Cantor comes into the game for a defensive substitution. As a comedian, I didn't know. Yeah.
You're just trying to get me ranting about everything. Now you want me ranting about freaking Jordan Kent, dude. Oh my goodness. I mean, has he not watched the T-ball season? Like, he's trying to think of catchphrases and, bucket went in, paint it. Is that just his job as a commentator?
And as Carson Dunn points out, he said, I love seeing him hedge and trap. I'm assuming he's talking about Cantor. It worked both times, just saying. Like, yeah, that's something that, like, we've seen it at the end of games, and multiple times people always told us, how many times did we hear that last season? You can't trap with Whiteside. He's not good at it or whatever. But like the first game of the year, you and I both noted several plays where he did that and Collins recovered or helped off, and then Whiteside was able to get back to his man and it worked out perfectly. And then we don't see it much the rest of the year. Whereas Cantor, for you can say what you want about him not being able to play defense or trap or whatever, but most of the times this year when he has done it correctly, it works out and he plays good defense. And it's not, if they score, it's not necessarily because of his him being in the wrong spot or him not being making a good defensive play. I feel like it's just like if you have lesser defenders, I feel like you should just try to get him to be a little more aggressive, and then it leads to him diving on the floor. Like, whereas if you're sagging back on a drop scheme, you're never going to dive to the floor for a loose ball because you're just standing there like stuck in mud, right? Whereas if you're up trapping, it's like natural instinct because you're being aggressive, and then the ball's on the floor, you're like, yeah, let me get that, and you dive on it. So I just feel like that's always been my problem with Stott's defense is just like he doesn't allow the players to naturally be aggressive and force turnovers and things like that. And I think that's something that could really change if he allowed them to do that kind of stuff instead of sitting back in the conservative defense.
Yeah. I mean, bro, the biggest myth that I see in terms of trapping is that people think you need to be like super quick as a big man in order to trap or hedge.
Yeah.
Bro, these big men can run forwards.
Yeah.
These, like, if you're guarding a center and he's going up to set a screen, all you have to do is run with him to be in position to trap or hedge.
Right. Yep.
Like you would have to be so slow in order for an NBA center running into a screen where they have to run into position and then stop before the defender even gets there. You'd have to be so slow to not just be able to maintain pace with that. You know what I mean? It's like people think, oh, well, there's a screen at the three-point arc. This big has to run from the block all the way up above the arc in order to trap in time. He has to do that in 2 seconds. Like, what is so baffling to me that people think you have to be insanely mobile as a big man in order to trap or hedge correctly. It makes me think a lot of people have never had to trap or hedge in the game of basketball themselves. I mean, it's not like Cantor has been somewhat effective. We saw in the Kings game back, a few weeks ago, he traps and hedges down the stretch, and he does so perfectly. And our defense starts locking things up, okay?
Like 4 straight plays.
Mm-hmm. He traps today. Jason Tatum doesn't know how to handle it. I don't think he was expecting it. It's a turnover. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not fully blaming Cantor. Like, Cantor comes into the game and they're running drop scheme with him and Tatum hits some threes. And my whole thing is like, dude, you don't have to drop Cantor, okay? He can come up and hedge and trap. And it would probably be easier on him, and the defense would likely be better. But if you really feel like you have to drop Cantor, then don't even play him. Play Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, have him trap, have him hedge. Play Nasir Little, have him trap, have him hedge. Play Derrick Jones Jr., Is he still on the team, Eric? He's still on the
I
team,
think
right?
so. I saw some commercial. They've been showing like practice footage with the on the wall in the background having
Yeah.
the game of the next one. And Derek Jones is sitting there from like 10 feet away, bricking flat footed jump shots. I don't know why they picked that footage to show. But yeah, so I think
Probably
he's
to
still
try
on
and
the
make
team.
us.
I
Bro,
don't know
you know why they picked those? You know that
Oh,
you know
right,
why
yeah.
they picked that
I
footage,
know what
right?
you're gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they want to make him look out to be trash, so that it makes sense why he's not playing. But no,
That
was
makes
it?
sense too, because they did show one of Giles' missing shots a couple weeks ago too.
Trying to plant the seeds in the heads of the people that don't listen to us, man. We're here to keep you guys from being brainwashed. All right, that's literally the only reason I started the channel in the first place. But wasn't Derek Jones Jr. one of those three guys that they showed on like the phone graphic, and they were doing the between the legs dunks in practice? It was, who was it? It was Nasir Little, Derek Jones Jr., and Harry Giles too. Those guys are super athletic, man. I mean, you see what they're doing out there on the floor, doing between the legs dunk and stuff. All three of those guys are athletic, man. None of them play. Enes Kanter has to play. Even if it's a disaster in the first half, still has to play the second half, no matter what. Doesn't make sense. Have to drop him against Tatum, apparently. That's what Stotts thinks most of the time, and you let Jason Tatum walk into threes. All right, that's what has to happen instead of playing these athletic guys that, even if you think, trapping and hedging is really hard, I mean, you can't deny that those guys are athletic enough, to do it. I mean, even if you think you have to be super quick, those guys are super quick, super athletic. They can do it. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. It was very frustrating in the second half. It's more frustrating to see it coming and to see 100 people on my timeline that see it coming, and then it still happens, So the whole thing with Kanter was just very frustrating today.
So I want to get to near 0-12s, don't know, but after this is gonna lead me from Kanter into the defense as a whole, and particularly Dame. But so near 0-12 with a $5, he says, just showing some love. Thanks, near 0-12. But come on, where's your basketball takes? Let's go.
Appreciated, Zero.
No, I'm just kidding.
Near zero.
So the reason why, showing on the picks, which basically what that means is when your guy, so if Kanter's guarding someone, he goes up and sets a screen, say he's guarding Robert Williams, and he goes and sets a screen for Tatum. So showing would be you're on whatever side that he's screening of, so the ball handler is coming around the screen, and you're just there to show so that he can't just walk into a shot or have a wide open shot or drive to the hoop. You just stop his momentum for a second, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is something that I saw on Twitter from a lot of people who are now trying to blame Dame in particular. Where was his defensive effort all year? It's no question that Stotts looks bad on coaching when Dame doesn't give effort, and now that he's giving effort, Stotts looks like a good coach and that kind of stuff, right? So here's why the show is so important. If our guards or whoever's guarding the ball handler are fighting through those screens and trying to get through them, the show allows them a couple of seconds extra to get through without giving up an open shot. And if we don't show, if you have Kanter sagging, then it's a lot harder to get through that pick and stay in front of him or get there to contest a shot. And the problem has been all season, the guards in particular just die on those picks, and they think they're going to get help on the other side, and they don't, or they think that they're just going to switch them, and they don't, and they give up an open shot. Whereas these last few games, someone like Dame is actually trying to get through the picks instead of just dying on them or going through them slowly. And just that little bit of effort, and this is what we've been talking about all along. It's there's no way you can tell me that isn't scheme-based if the all your players just automatically switch on picks or automatically refuse to like fight through them quickly. And then you see a guy like Derrick Jones the first couple games, like against the Lakers, he is all over the place fighting, getting skinny through picks, going through them, and then as the season goes on, he's like automatically switching like everyone else does on this team. Same with Ariza last year when he came over. Ariza is one of the better players I've seen in the last 10 years or so about getting through picks on the defensive end. And then all of a sudden at the right before the shutdown, he's auto switching picks and stuff like that. So the difference has been these guys seemingly are taking it upon themselves to just get through those picks faster and recover. And that's something that can absolutely change the defensive effort and make it better. Obviously, the second half was a lot better. The first half was not good defensively, but both teams were insanely hot in this one. But like that's just something that is like it's a mindset with the team. And if your coach, I guarantee you, a coach like Tibbs, who completely changed the defensive mindset of the New York Knicks, doesn't just say, "Oh, just go kind of slow through this pick and if you get screened, just call for the switch and just go wide through it and don't try to get skinny or anything. Just like if you happen to get through it, you do. If not, we have the guy sagging in the keys, so it's not a big deal or whatever." Instead, you got to be like, no, you get your butt through that screen, and if you continue to get picked and you're not fighting through that, then you sit your butt on the bench. And like that's like a mindset you need to instill in these guys, that you have to get through those picks fast. And that's been one of our biggest problems ever since Stotts became our coach. It actually dates back to McMillan too. He was not good at that, at least with us. But like, you have to find a way to fight through those picks. And that can make such a difference between being a good defensive team and a bad defensive team. And if you just show Cantor for a second on those things instead of sagging him back in the key, I think it would be like average. And that's all you need out of Cantor. If he can just be okay in those situations versus abysmal like tonight, like I just don't get why we don't try that at all. And we haven't had that mindset until these last few games.
Yeah, I mean, in the playoffs, honestly, depending on matchup, I hope that if it's a team like Boston, if it's a team like Phoenix, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't play. He's just a matchup dependent big man at this point. Next season, I hope Zach Collins is our backup center. I mean, like the starting lineup's playing solid defensively, and the starting lineup I thought played solid defensively today. It helps having Nurkic, one of the most underrated big man defenders in the entire league. It's just frustrating to come out with a Melo and Cantor pairing tonight, and it's not really a Melo problem tonight. I think he was like a -7 or something like that, for all the Melo fans that want me to use plus minus at times. I mean, it was a Cantor situation. It was a Cantor situation, and it's mostly due to, like, a big part of it is just due to, as you've explained, the way that Stotts feels like he needs to scheme for Cantor defensively, which is just not the way to go. And, it's been a topic all season long. So next year, I'm hoping that we have a guy like Collins who's a mobile big, who I mean, the way this team is playing, maybe Stotts is bad. Maybe we go on a playoff run. I mean, I don't know. It's not completely out of the question. If that's the case and he's back, but also, I hope Zach Collins is the backup center, so Stotts would feel comfortable enough to have him hedge and trap a little more than than once in a blue moon. So I don't know. It's frustrating. It was frustrating that he played the second half, and we all knew it was coming.
Yeah, and again, I just want to emphasize nothing against Cantor. I mean, that guy's been. We couldn't have asked for much more than what he's given us this season. I still feel like that was a good move to get him, and we needed him when Nurk was down. But yeah, it's if the last few games we've had like an 8-man rotation for the most part, and I don't think that he should be in that, except I mean, there's certain teams, I guess, like if we're playing the Lakers or something, and they have like Drummond and Marc Gasol and those kind of players as their center, then I guess it's probably okay. But
problem is Marcus all shoots threes.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of there aren't a lot of teams that we absolutely have to play him against. But he does clean up when we're shooting poorly or not. But this is once again why we want the offense to flow like it has been, because I feel like a lot of these guys would shoot higher percentages, not as well as tonight. I mean, you can't expect them to shoot this well every game, but like we wouldn't need so many offensive rebounds if our offense was more locked in.
Well, also let me make this point, okay? Even though he's a great offensive rebounder, if we are in a playoff series against a really good team and we're missing shots and then our defense is poor, doesn't matter how many offensive rebounds he's going to grab, we're going to lose anyway. So it's almost like his best value comes in a situation where we're going to lose anyway against a really good team. So how valuable is that really? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's been interesting to kind of debate this all season long, and I've been a little back and forth on it. I think at this point, you go small. You got some athletic wing defenders. I think that's kind of the way to go.
But Tori, so this is where this comes into play, and okay, I'm not saying that this is an actual like argument, but you know how Stotts always says like, or offense is rated 5th, or over the last month it's been 1st or whatever. A lot of that this season has been because we've had the tremendous offensive rebounding from Enes Kanter, and if we did not have that in the game, yes, our defensive rating would probably be better, but our offensive rating would be worse. So then our defensive rating would still be bad based on everything else, but our offensive rating would probably be closer to 10th or maybe even worse. And then still Stotts wouldn't have that.
What is our offensive rating right now?
I think we're like 5th or 6th, but we were, based on the last couple games, we had post All-Star break, I think we're up to 1st in offensive rating or whatever.
Yeah.
But like he has saved a lot of possessions and made our offensive rating look a lot better than it was.
A backup center playing 18 to 20 minutes per game is not the difference between being a like 5th ranked offensive team and like 10th or worse.
He was not the backup center for half the season.
I'm just saying like at this point.
Yeah. I know. I'm saying like I can see why they forced him to play so many minutes throughout the season, because he does make the offense look better against most teams.
But like without Nurkic, we don't have enough bigs. We have to play him anyways. You know what I mean? So I mean, like right now, it's I don't know. Right now, it's a different debate than it was before Nurkic came back. But, I mean, I don't know. I assume he's going to play in the playoffs. Let's recap, or let's talk about a really relevant game right now that is about to go into halftime. I've been looking at this box score. This is an extremely weird game, by the way. It's relevant because it's the Los Angeles Lakers going up against the Toronto Raptors, right? So the Lakers, they have LeBron back. They have AD back. The Raptors, they don't have Fred VanVleet. They don't have Gary Trent Jr. They don't have OG Anunoby. They don't have Aaron Baines. They started a lineup of Malachi Flynn, Kyle Lowry, Stanley Johnson, Pascal Siakam, and Ken Birch, right? The Lakers are shooting 44% from 3, 49% from the field, but the Raptors are currently up 5, 62-57. I don't know how, looking at the box score. Oh, that's how. They have 10 more free throws than the Lakers. They have 10 more free throws. Good. Yeah. What'd you say?
Siakam's playing well.
Siakam's killing it. He has 22 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. There's currently 2 minutes left in the second quarter. The Raptors are now up 63-57.
Don't sleep on Ken Birch, man. He had a huge game last game.
Yeah, he currently is 1 for 5 with 4 points. But he's an underrated. He's an underrated player. I'm just looking at this. They have 2 guys in their starting lineup that are scoreless: Stanley Johnson and Malachi Flynn, and then Ken Birch has 4 points. So I don't know. This is a very weird game.
We need Rodney Hood to go crazy in this one.
Yeah, he has 7 points. He's gotten 4 free throws, so he's getting to the free throw line. Bembry has 9 off the bench. Who is? I saw Jay Harris. I was like, when did they? What? Why are they showing Joe Harris on the Raptors? They got Jalen Harris. They're having to play a guy by the name of Jalen Harris and Freddie Gillespie and Watanabe. Yeah, so the Raptors. I mean, they're now up 8. They might be doing us a favor tonight, just like the Kings did, right? For the Lakers, you got LeBron with 11 points, 2 assists. He's played 14 minutes, so he played a decent amount of minutes there in the first half. I don't know what type of minutes restriction he's on. Anthony Davis has 7 points. They got 14 off the bench from Kuzma, their wild card, but Kuzma, with his 14 points, Eric, is a team worst, minus 13. Just an interesting stat, an interesting box score.
Yeah, LeBron with the I won't be 100% statement. So I'm just a kid from Akron. No one believed in me, even though I have chosen one tattooed on my body. But yeah, yeah, it's a little dramatic, but he's definitely going. It's going to be kind of like the bubble for the Lakers. I think they're just going to use the rest of the season to make sure that LeBron and AD are both ready to go by the playoff time. I don't think seeding matters that much for them.
Yeah, but I don't know if they want to have like kind of the. I feel like they want
a
first round
game. Yeah.
They want a first round opponent that is kind of like a tune-up. You know what I mean? Like that they don't have to be completely on top of their game to beat, right? So like a Denver Nuggets team. There's a good chance they face the Clippers in the first round at this point. Right now, the Clippers are 4th. The Nuggets just passed them. The Clippers have lost 3 straight. The Nuggets have won 5 straight. The Clippers are now 4th. The Lakers right now are 5th. So right now, they would face in the first round. Now, if the Lakers lose this game, it will be a 3-way tie for 5th, 6th, and 7th between the Lakers, Blazers, and Mavericks. None of those teams have a chance of jumping up into the top 4, but at this point, it looks like none of those teams will fall to 8th or lower. Right now, Memphis is 3.5 games back of Portland and Dallas, and Memphis is in 8th. So right now, it looks like it's going to be the Lakers, Blazers, Mavericks, in some sort of combination, 5th, 6th, 7th. Now, obviously, want to be top 6, want to avoid that play-in, but one of those teams is likely going to face the Clippers. One of those teams is likely going to face the Nuggets. The Nuggets and Clippers are likely to be 3rd and 4th. So it's going to be interesting to watch how this shakes out. I feel like the Lakers do not want to have to try and completely flip the switch by playing the Clippers in the first round. Okay? Because they did it last season, but they had a first round matchup against the Blazers playing Carmelo Anthony at small forward and starting Wenyen Gabriel. You know what I mean? At power forward and playing Mario Hezonja minutes. So that was like a good tune-up. In the second round, they have a Rockets team that is literally playing Robert Covington at center when the Lakers have a ton of size and have Russell Westbrook on their team. So they were able to kind of ramp up into things. They did not. During that championship run, none of the teams they played were as good as the Clippers could be in the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. So can they flip the switch? It'll be interesting to see if that ends up being their first round matchup.
And there's lots of scenarios where, the Lakers and Clippers could be the 4-5, and then whichever team gets first between Utah and Phoenix is on their side of the bracket, and then we're on the same side with Dallas, Denver, and whichever one doesn't get first between Utah and Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So we could do that, or the scenario you talked about earlier where the Lakers and Clippers are the 6-3, and then they're both on the same side, and then we're the 4-5 with Denver and avoid those two teams. And yeah, that's the ideal scenario. I don't know how likely that is from happening, but if we get both LA teams on the opposite side of the bracket, I don't know if we have a chance to make the Western Conference Finals, but we have a better chance than if we get on the side with either of those teams.
Yeah, but I also want this team to be able to beat the team they face in the Western Conference Finals. They're going to make it. Right. I don't want it to go like it did in 2019, and then Stars gets extended 10 years, and we still can't get over the hill against a true contending team. Because we're talking about a Jazz team that's relatively the same team that has lost in the first round the past couple years. You're talking about maybe a Nuggets team missing their second best player. It's not, I'm not going to say the Jazz aren't true contenders, but they're not like a healthy Lakers or a healthy Clippers team. And we're going to have to beat one of those teams. Like, if we make the Western Conference Finals, I assume we're going to be playing one of those teams. Right now, the Clippers and the Lakers, according to PlayoffStats.com, have a 32% chance of playing each other in the first round. The Lakers and the Nuggets also have a 32% chance of playing each other in the first round. It's interesting to kind of look at some of these percentages, whether or not you want to put like any stock into them whatsoever. It's just based off team record and strength of schedule remaining. So obviously there's some factors that need to be accounted for that aren't in there, such as injuries, such as the Blazers playing better lately. But right now it gives us a 55% chance of being 5th or 6th. So it's better than it was 4 games ago.
Wasn't it down to like 12% or something?
Yeah. Before this 4-game winning streak.
Raptors up 13. It's hard to believe that was just a week ago, that we're all just wondering if they were even going to make the 7-8 playing game, let alone get the 5th or 6th seed.
Mm-hmm. The Lakers, though, I don't know. I don't know if they'll be able to quite flip the switch as they did last season. They didn't really face a really good team in the Western Conference playoffs. Like, I think the Clippers, the Suns, the Jazz are better than the Blazers from last year. Even the Nuggets from last year, I thought were a little, I don't know. I don't think they were noticeably better than a lot of teams in this year's Western Conference playoffs.
They're pretty good. They had Jeremy Grant, and Millsap was a year younger. Obviously Murray healthy. I wouldn't say that, but they did in the finals. They did have Dragic and Bam miss a little bit of time too, which helped them. So I don't even know if you can say the finals matchup was incredibly tough. Miami put up a great fight. I'm not trying to say it was a Mickey Mouse win or anything, but
you're just touching on everything today. Aaron Gordon, Jordan Kent, Mickey Mouse wins.
I don't know. It's just they're gonna have a tough time this year, and I'm all for it. I don't like how AD forces trade there, then they win it. And I'd be happy if they got bounced early, and then you have to hear the excuses and the crying about why.
Yep. I think they got I don't know. If LeBron isn't 100%, which according to him he won't be, then I think it's going to be a tough road for them. Anthony Davis, he's pretty injury prone. Like, there's a chance one of those guys is going to miss time in the playoffs. And if one of those guys misses time, they don't have a roster really built to overcome it, right? You look at it, it's like, oh, they got Andre Drummond, most overrated big man in the league. Okay, dude is incredibly overrated. Dennis Schroeder, not a good fit, also incredibly overrated, in my opinion. And I was saying this before these guys were Lakers.
I do think if they're missing one of those guys, though, Schroeder is a little...
He's good to have, but he's not the difference maker that people think he is. Yeah. Because let me just pull them up statistically. We're just talking Lakers, talking playoffs.
While you're doing that, you have no clue had a $2 donation with no message. I'm assuming it probably got held for.
Appreciate it. And then we'll thank the other one when we get back into Blazer talk. The other one was from Henry Hall, and I'll use that as the segue back into Blazers talk. But Schroeder right now is shooting under 48% from 2. He's only shooting 33.5% from 3. He is better defensively than he was earlier in his career, but I wouldn't say he's good. True shooting percentage, 54%. That's a little inefficient. Not a good defender. And for a point guard, he's giving you a solid... he's giving you 5.8 assists per game right now, but I wouldn't say he's necessarily a good passing point guard, 40 point guard.
for the record, he's been a decent defender the last couple of years.
He's been okay. I'm not gonna say good or.
I didn't say good.
Average.
I said decent.
Yes, he's been average at best. Average at best is what I. But I mean, you know what I mean? It's like you look at him. I don't know. It's just like, what does he do that's noticeably good? And he'll have good moments, but like he has as many bad moments as he has good moments, and that's kind of their third guy. Montrezl Harrell has kind of had his minutes cut, and he isn't the difference maker that people thought he was. Kyle Kuzma can have games where he does well offensively, but he's not. He has never been the most efficient player, and he's always been a bad defender. So it's like if they lose one of those guys, or one of AD and LeBron isn't 100%, I could see him losing to the Suns, the Jazz, the Clippers, maybe the Nuggets if they keep playing like this. I mean, they're not going to be the team that people expect them to be in the playoffs, most likely. Now there's a chance they kind of run it back like how they did last year and have a similar playoff performance, and LeBron just goes crazy. But I think they're beatable. I definitely think they're beatable. I don't think they're head and shoulders above anybody at this point.
Yep, and it's kind of a question on... It's natural to let up a little bit, they want a ring. AD gets a ring finally. So like that kind of made a lot of questions go away. And then your grind or your championship aspirations aren't necessarily the same the next year because you already won one, so you feel validated already. So, I mean, I know LeBron wants to get as many as possible so he can have that on his resume, but I don't know, I feel like that same fire that they had last year isn't quite there. I'm not saying that it can't get back because they still have two of the best players in the league, so if they're healthy and neither of them get hurt in the playoffs, I still think they're a very tough matchup for just about any team. But yeah, it's just a case of, because when LeBron got hurt his first year, I think they were in playoff position, but then lost a bunch of games, and then he came back, and after he was back in the mix, he said he was activating playoff mode, and then they lost almost every game the rest of the season and got like didn't make the playoffs, and then they have to trade for AD, and then like Gordon's right. There's not many years outside of, I think, twice in 7 years they made the playoffs with AD on that Pelicans team. So he's not really a guy who leads his teams to a championship level either. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that team and what happens if they do get knocked out early in the playoffs, if there's a lot of changes or blaming people or whatever. But
yep. So we'll keep you guys posted. This game, we'll be wrapping up the stream by the time this game is really getting into the third quarter. So this game's at halftime. Raptors up 72-59. I mean, this is a Raptors team starting Malachi Flynn, Stanley Johnson, and Kem Birch.
But that being said, I'll take AD to pair with Dame all day if they want to give him up enough.
Facts. So yeah, going to be interesting to see if the Lakers can kind of turn it on. We have a game coming up against them. Let me find the exact date here. On the 7th of May, which is next. Goodness, what day is that? Friday. This is a Friday night game on ESPN. So
got switched to ESPN yet?
Yep, got switched to ESPN at expense of Utah versus Denver. I was a little surprised to see that, but that'll be a huge game. That'll be a huge game because not only is that obviously a team we're battling with, that's a game that will decide who has the tiebreaker between these two teams. If we beat them, we should have a three-way tiebreaker. Because we're 2-1 against the Mavericks, and we'd be 2-1 against the Lakers. So if all three of those teams tied, it goes to head-to-head amongst all teams. We'd be 4-2. So there's a solid chance we would be the team that wins that tiebreaker. So tiebreakers are important. That Lakers game is going to be the biggest game of the year in terms of seeding. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's get back into Blazer talk. Henry Hall, $5 donation says, so we're committed to starting Norm, and we're going to have to guard LeBron at some point. Is now the appropriate time to ask CJ to be a super sub? Absolutely not. I appreciate the donation, but absolutely not. You do not take out a guy like CJ McCollum of his caliber and bring him off the bench with 8 games left in the season when the team is finally starting to play well. You do not just rock the boat that much and completely and make him do something he hasn't done in years. Okay? That's a mental adjust. Go ahead.
He plays with the bench, so I don't get why people constantly bring that up as a suggestion. Like, he is basically a starter and a bench player, so like,
yeah, I just think, like, what, you're gonna bring CJ off the bench because you don't want Norm guarding LeBron? Norm is strong, has an 8'7" standing reach. Like, he's one of those guys that's quick enough laterally and maybe strong enough to be able to kind of deal with LeBron as a slasher, okay? And if LeBron wants to try and shoot jumpers over him, I think you live with that, okay? You can't, if it's not going well, you can sub Norman Powell or CJ McCollum out a little bit earlier in the first quarter and sub in somebody that can defend. Yeah, maybe you do that, but you don't bench CJ. You don't take him out of the starting lineup.
Yeah, I would say keep the starting lineup the same. Like you said, a few minutes into the game, you can bring one or both of those guys out and put in a much bigger lineup, and then just from that point on, the rest of the half match Derek Jones or whoever you designate. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson has had some success in his career guarding LeBron, so maybe you just mirror them. But to start the game, I don't think you necessarily like, I don't know. It's just people. It shouldn't be an issue, but people like to start, and if you bench someone like CJ, you're basically saying like he's the problem or whatever, and I don't like that look. But the thing is, so why start in a hole every game? The thing is, I mean, not many of those guys on the Lakers can keep all 3 of those guards in front of them. So you also have a case where you have a guard, whoever's got the mismatch between those 3, they can't guard all 3 of them. So we also have an advantage if you do correctly on the other end and take advantage of that.
And how, Henry, how does starting CJ against the Lakers equal an automatic hole early in the game that we're in? Like, why? Like, be a little specific with that, because I don't see how starting CJ equals we're in an early hole against the Lakers.
And honestly, I mean, RIP Blazers says, no single person can stop LeBron really anyway. Yeah. So, like, just send a double team at him and force him out of his hand if he's killing you.
This is the point I want to make. People focus too much on the individual matchup against a guy like LeBron, and they don't focus enough on team defense, because in order to effectively, you're not even necessarily going to slow down LeBron. Here's the thing with LeBron. He's such a good passer that he can have 10 points and just have an insanely positive impact on the offense, right? So to reduce his impact as much as possible, you have to have your team defense dialed in. Okay, individually, yeah, you don't want guys getting blown by and scored at, at the rim, and you don't want to give LeBron open 3-point jumpers if he's getting hot from the outside, right? But he runs a lot of pick and roll, all right? Scheme-wise, you got to have the proper scheme. Having Norman Powell instead of Derek Jones Jr. or Nasir Little or Robert Covington on him isn't going to make much of a difference when you're guarding him in the pick and roll, all right? You just need the big man to be able to help in that situation, and you got to stop LeBron from getting downhill. You basically cannot drop the big. Even though he's not necessarily the best outside shooter. You can't drop the big because that's just a guy you can't give a head of steam to and like just attack your big man downhill at full speed. So you got to hedge him. You got to hedge him, you got to trap him, you got to throw different looks at him. So that's a scheme-based thing. But then also if he drives and you have to help, you got to be able to close out properly on shooters and rotate properly because he'll make that extra pass to the right guy and they'll get open shots out of that if your team defense, if your help side defense, if your defensive rotations aren't on point. So honestly, him having the most minimal impact possible might be still him scoring 25 points. Okay, that's the thing. It's almost like a pick your poison thing. You give him a lot of attention to try and slow him down scoring the ball, you're going to open up other things. If you don't open up other things, he's likely going to have a big scoring game. So you have to have, yes, you have to have good individual defense on him, but a big factor of it is how you defend him as a team.
Yeah, and I mean, I may be off base here, but I feel like LeBron at this point of his career doesn't like take over games in the first few minutes either. Like he kind of, you know how you see Dame sometimes like get his teammates involved and get others in the flow of the game. I feel like LeBron, a lot of the times when I've watched the Lakers the last two seasons, he's not coming out like, oh, full speed attack mode, 100% downhill, get to the basket every possession type LeBron anymore. I think he's more pick his spots and do that kind of things. Now, if you have a mismatch and he takes advantage of that, sure, then make a defensive substitution. But I don't think it's a case of us needing to like do something drastically different. Because like, let's say, so Derrick Jones Jr. played well the first matchup of the year against him, right? How did he like shut down LeBron in the second matchup or whatever, or did we do something different when I don't think we had CJ back for that game yet, right? So CJ didn't even play in that one, I believe, because that was when we had the 4-game losing streak or whatever. So I mean, even if you start our biggest lineup possible, we're still not containing LeBron if he wants to get his basket. So like, I don't think it really matters that much.
Yeah, and here's the question for Henry. Who would you start in place of CJ? Who would you start in place of CJ? I'm curious to see what your answer is. But Norman Powell is not as undersized as people make him out to be, and I made this point earlier.
He said DJ.
DJ. Okay, I mean, DJ has a more length and a taller standing reach, but he's not as strong as Norman Powell. I mean...
So, here's my thing. He says that starting the quarters off are important, right? Which, yeah, sure, they are. But he's also saying CJ can still play 36 minutes and close the game. So you have that same problem in the closing lineup anyway. So, like, what does it matter if we have that problem in the first 3 minutes or the 8 to 4 minute mark in the first quarter? Like, exactly. It doesn't really matter, and that's why I always feel like just switching CJ to the bench is kind of dumb, because he comes in with the bench anyway, and he's going to play his minutes. Dame's going to play his minutes, so it doesn't really do anything other than change the times during the game where that starts. And yes, it'd be nice to set the tone defensively right from the beginning, but it's not a matter of if CJ starts, there's no possible way you can do that. And if CJ comes off the bench, it's 100% going to happen that way. It's more closer to 50-50 in my mind. So, like, I don't know. I get why people think that, I guess, but I just think the way we use CJ, it just does not make sense to change his role or anything, because just changing his minutes is basically just telling him he can't be a starter anymore, but he's going to play the same times. Like, it doesn't make sense to like do that. And I still don't think, but Tori and I are both big on that Dame and CJ are not the problem. So I don't know. You're going to have a tough time convincing us anything differently.
Well, here's the thing. Here's also the thing I don't understand is Norman Powell has a 8'7" standing reach. Okay, sure, you start Nas, he has an 8'9" standing reach. But Norman Powell is a smarter defender. He's a veteran. Nas is still young, doesn't have much experience. So you're going to bench CJ to take Norman Powell off of LeBron James so you can put in a guy who doesn't have much experience to guard LeBron simply because he has a 2-inch advantage in terms of a standing reach. You're going to do all of that just to do that when you would still have situations where you run the 3-guard lineup with LeBron in the game. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's how we feel on it. Shout out Near012 for the $5 donation. He says, I think having 3 guards might help open up the paint for Dame and Norman drives, and for Nurkic to operate in the paint. You can leave Derrick Jones Jr. wide open, and that's also a good point. It's like there's not much difference defensively between a Norman Powell and Nasir Little size-wise. Norman Powell is a better defender right now, and he's a smarter defender, and he has experience playing against LeBron. He was playing in the Eastern Conference. So it doesn't really make sense to bench CJ, piss him off, mess with him mentally, have to play him for extremely long stretches in a row and burn him out. And then you're sacrificing the offense there too to start games. If we bench CJ and start Nasir Little, we're going to open up in more of a hole simply because of the offense. The offense is going to struggle a lot more than the defense would have. So that's a great point from Near012.
Yep. Yeah, it's this leads me to so I listen to the Jason Quick interview every week on 1080 The Fan, and so he had an interesting thing that I wanted to get your thoughts about, and that is if Stotts is let go in the offseason and Olshey stays, do you think this dynamic could come into play where Olshey has to trade CJ because if he doesn't and it doesn't work out with a new coach, then he is going to have the microscope directly on him, whereas if he finally trades CJ and redoes the roster, then you could say it's a completely different roster and stuff like that. I don't know what Olshey's thoughts would be on that, if his love for CJ would overrule that, or if he'd like to give them a chance or what. But
No, you don't. It kind of sounds like he'd need to hedge his bets and also trade CJ to take the attention off the coach. But if you're Olshey, you simply just got to go out and hire the right coach and have confidence that that coach is going to improve things with this team and you're going to see improvement out of it. Because if that happens, with CJ on the team, you look like a genius. Oh, maybe it was the coach's fault. Maybe it wasn't your fault. You know, this team is doing good with CJ. They have CJ and they're a borderline top 10 defense and they're a top 3 offense. Like, if that happens, it validates Olshey. You know what I mean? So you almost just got to try and make the best decision. You can't make a roster decision for like PR reasons or to make it look better or to, I don't know. Like I don't really understand that premise. Like if you trade CJ, you can put, if the team struggles, you can say that it's the new roster instead. Like just go out and make the best decision for the organization. It is that simple to me. So
here's what it's coming to, though. If that scenario plays out, Stotts gets fired, Olshey stays, I think short of, we can all get excited about a deep run in the playoffs. Short of that happening, I think that's probably the most likely scenario this summer. And here's the deal. I think you go into the season, try to re-sign Norm. But if CJ's on the roster going into next season, all these people are going to be mad. And they're all going to be, it's going to be like the Fire Stotts thing this year. Like all those people are going to be the same towards Olshey next year if CJ's still on the roster, right? Which is fine if it works out. But here's the deal. Why not see what happens with a new coach first and then trade CJ at the deadline, or during the season up until the deadline. You have several months of the season to see how it works, and then if something happens, you then trade him, or if you're not playing well, then try to move him. Then you don't have to move him. And I agree with some of the people in the comments that if obviously if you get offered a good deal for CJ this summer, you take it if it's for an upgrade at another position. But I just don't get why people would be so unwilling to watch one more year of it under a different coach.
I mean, if Stotts gets fired, you're going to have a bunch of people that love Stotts that are going to just go crazy with narratives that aren't based on anything. Honestly, screw that. They can go do that. Who cares? I mean, if the team starts winning a lot of games, they're going to shut up. Okay? And even if the team struggles a bit, they're like, yeah, they're going to have their narratives. Cool. Oh well. that they can have that. You just go out and hire a good coach. And I mean, like, if I'm Olshey, I'm thinking, man, all these struggles we've had this year, if we go out and get a new coach, things will be a lot better in certain areas, and it'll correlate to more team success in the regular season. And once that happens, people will say, oh, maybe Dame and CJ can coexist, and maybe it was a Stotts issue, and, I'm not going to have any heat on me. That's what I would think if I'm Olshey, going to fire Stotts, basically.
Yeah. Well, because everything I've heard from Quick is that Jody Allen is very results based and stuff like that. So it is kind of a situation where if he tells her he's going to go a different direction than the coach or whatever, then I think then the heat from Jody will be on him the following season, because then she'll say, well, you changed the coach and things are still wrong. So it'll be interesting to see, because that's what we always hear. He never makes an all-in move, right? So like if his job becomes on the line, then does he make an all-in move, or does he go down with the ship with the Dame and CJ backcourt? But yeah, I don't know.
Here's the problem with that. I don't think there's going to be an all-in move available that makes any sort of sense.
Yeah.
I don't think there is. Like, who's going to be available for a CJ trade this offseason?
For the record, I don't know if this is just speculation or not, but Quick has said multiple times that Olshey did try to get James Harden. And I don't know what happened or what the offer was or whatever, but he's mentioned that several times that Olshey was in talks with the Rockets. I don't know how far those talks went, but he definitely tried or inquired about a trade there.
Yeah,
and obviously he went for a ton of money or a ton of assets. But yeah.
Yeah, which means he was willing to trade CJ for James Harden, because you can't get that trade without including CJ salary-wise. Especially like that early in the season. And value-wise, you wouldn't be able to get it done without CJ. But what happened when Harden was traded, Eric? So many people freaked out, like, oh, he didn't go for that much. Screw Neil Olshey. He wasn't willing to trade CJ for James Harden. And they have no way of knowing that. And then you got a guy who's plugged in saying that he was willing to trade CJ for James Harden. It just didn't get done. Yet people were sitting here like eviscerating Olshey based on a falsehood. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then, we don't know if CJ was offered for Kawhi Leonard, but this always brings me back to the hindsight bias thing, because Kawhi sat out that whole year. There were people saying that he had like a degenerative quad issue, that he wasn't ever going to be the same again. And when he was traded to Houston, or to Toronto, no one on Toronto even knew if he was going to show up. So that trade might have gotten blown up because Kawhi didn't report for his physical or whatever. And it all worked out for Toronto, obviously. But you have that issue. You have him on the last year of his deal, knowing it would be really hard to keep him. And then on top of that, you have no clue about his physical condition. He sat out a whole season, and then you don't even know if he'll show up to play in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
So on top of all that, we could have still offered CJ, and they didn't want CJ. They like DeRozan more than CJ or whatever. We don't know that. It's hard to tell, but that's why it's crazy to me when people are like, "Well, he didn't trade for Kawhi. Look how easily the Raptors got him for." But like Kawhi, like to some teams, he was toxic and like untouchable. I mean,
Yeah.
There weren't many players that had dissed the Spurs and not wanted to play for Popovich and stuff like that. And they had a great relationship apparently before that. So yeah, I don't get why why people kill him just over these all-in moves. And then you can say like, well, just in general, there's been like 20 of them and he hasn't done a single one. But like then you include like Aaron Gordon in those trades, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense, man. I mean, the whole narrative around Olshey from the people that don't like him is just absolutely ridiculous, and I feel like he probably feels the same way. And I mean, if he fires the coach and hires a new one, it'll likely get even more ridiculous. But I don't think he cares. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I let off with that.
And I just want to throw this out there too. So let's say we traded C.J. McCollum for Julius Randle last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Julius Randle would not have been an all-star in the West on our team this year, right? CJ on the Knicks, scoring like 30 a game and getting 8 assists a game, probably would have been an all-star in the East, right? Mm-hmm. And then what all those people would be saying, we traded an all-star for a non-all-star, and we have zero all-stars under him, and in fact, he traded away an all-star. And you know what I mean?
Yep.
But like Julius Randle was an all-star this year on his situation, but like that's why the all-star thing is so stupid to me. Like, and I guarantee you that that scenario would have played out had we just traded them straight across. Julius Randle, even if he played well, would not have been an all-star, and CJ would have, as long as he didn't get hurt. And it's just that's why that's such a dumb conversation or such a dumb talking point for all those people.
Yep. And even if we trade for Kawhi, what happens if we lose in the second round or the Western Conference Finals and then he leaves? Then everybody's eviscerating Olshey.
Oh, I didn't even mention this. Going into that season, there was still the Golden State Warriors with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant all healthy that season. It wasn't until later in the season when they got hurt, right? Mm-hmm. So going into that season, on top of not knowing if Kawhi would show up, whether he'd want to play in Portland, whether his injury situation was good or bad, whether San Antonio would give up that, you still want Portland to give up CJ and go all in on a one-year rental when we don't even know if we could beat Golden State. Like, there was no team that could have been assembled, if healthy, to beat Golden State that year.
We would have lost to Golden State if we played them if they were healthy.
So it's just, like, that's why I hate the hindsight thing. Like, it's so crazy. Like, that would have been a dumb trade. And then you see all these people, like, oh, look at Minnesota. They make all these all-in moves. Yeah, well, they've sucked for, like, 17 years now. They just had that tweet
out of it
yesterday, like, oh, we're finally playing basketball in May. Look at us. Like, yeah, because the schedule got delayed. Like,
yep. So, yeah. Let's finish recapping this game. Right. The Raptors, just to mention, are up 16 with 3 minutes left in the third. So
nice.
We'll see how that game ends. But yeah, not planning on going through individual players with the graphics. Let's just talk about who do you want to talk about individually that we haven't really today?
Thought Dame's defense was good in this one.
Also, 13 assists is impressive.
Yeah, 13 assists was impressive. The rest of the guys individually, I felt like because Boston wasn't scoring a lot in the paint, I felt like they did us a real nice gesture to not post up Tatum a lot with Dame on him in the second half. So thank you, Boston, for not taking advantage of that. But I felt like Boston wasn't really attacking the paint much, and they were looking for the skip passes, and I felt like we were sagging too much in the paint. So that's something I think we should clean up a little bit. let's see. I'm just kind of going through the guys as they come across here. Cantor, we've already talked about.
Let's talk about a little bit about Nurkic. We haven't talked enough about him, I think. Peak Nurkic is an all-star caliber big man when he's playing at his best. I tweeted that out. I believe it. He has played like an all-star caliber big man over the past 6 games. Okay, today, like, his stat line isn't super impressive, but the impact he made, Eric, he was as impactful as any player on this game. Defensively, I thought he was extremely good. He scores 14 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, has 2 steals. His passing, to start off the game, had a couple real nice passes leading to good shots. One a pretty open mid-range catch-and-shoot jumper for CJ McCollum off a bounce pass. Like, his playmaking, rebounding, defense, and then scoring ability, which I think is a little underrated at this point. Just the blend of that makes him have an all-star caliber impact, even if he only scores 14 points. The thing is, he's playing 29 minutes. He's not like Norman Powell, Dame, or CJ when they're playing 38, 39 minutes. They have an extra 10 minutes to get their 20 points or whatnot. If Nurkic plays that much, he's probably scoring 20 points. He started to get going, and then he gets taken out. I felt like he could have easily had a 20, like a 20, 12, and 5 game in this game. He got subbed out a little early there in the third quarter. Already touched on that. But his finishing is a little under. People act like he's some terrible finisher. I mean, he's 5 for 9 from the field. He's shooting close to 60% from 0 to 3 feet, and he's improving with his finishing. He was struggling when he came back from injury. He's been better. I mean, last game he goes 9 for 12 from the field. So his finishing is underrated at this point. His scoring ability is a little underrated because, I mean, he's finishing better than a lot of people are acting like he is. But then he's also hitting threes, Eric. He's 1 for 1 today. And going into this game, let me just pull this up here. He was shooting 36. He was shooting 36% from 3 going into this game. He is now 10 for 26 from 3. Okay, that is, let's just do the math. Yep, 38.5 if you round. Good old rounding. Got to give him his credit. But regardless, it's a small sample size, right? But it's impressive. He looks confident. He looks comfortable shooting threes. So he's able to, if he continues to do this, he can provide some floor spacing as well, some pick and pop ability, which is just another element to his game. So I love the way he's been playing in the past 6 games. It's very fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Nurk is a game changer when he's playing this way. And it's good to see him back. Man, I want so badly for that guy to just have at least one season where he's healthy for the entire season, plays well, and has a chance to finish the season at both playoffs and, with being healthy and all that. So same with Collins too, but Nurk is just such an important piece. And he's on a great contract. He's seemingly a great locker room guy too. There's so much to love about Nurk, and we definitely missed him all last year for the most part, and most of this year.
Yep. Exciting to watch him.
And one cool thing about the later schedule and the way Ramadan works out this year is that's going to be over by the start of the playoffs this year, as opposed to...
Are we sure we want it to be over by the playoffs? Because he's playing great right now.
I don't know. I mean, I hope he doesn't, eat himself off the court or something once it's over. But, I think having those guys be able to drink water and stuff during the game will be good. But yeah, it's just because we had that problem with Cantor in particular in the playoffs 2 years ago. This year, though, hopefully they're back to eating normal and all that stuff by the playoffs, and everything is good there nutrition-wise, because that could be affecting some of their stamina right now and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Also, I haven't really talked a ton about CJ. 12 for 20 today, 4 for 8 from the 3-point line, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 33 points. Man, if we only had Aaron Gordon instead of him, we would have won this game by 20, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Phenomenal game from him.
CJ's the reason why we won, right? No, or lost. Wait, we won? I don't understand. We have 2 undersized guards. Why did we win?
Yeah, I'm confused too.
We started a third one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, his shot making today was very impressive. And obviously, this is just the typical CJ McCollum game. Nice to see him have 5 assists. Nice to see him get 6 free throw attempts because normally he doesn't get a ton of free throw attempts. One of those, or 3 of those free throws were off of him getting fouled on a 3-point shot, which is rare. So that is a big reason why. But 33 points on 20 shots, efficient night from him. It was a nice game from him, and this is what we're going to need him to do in the playoffs. We're going to need him to have these games as teams load up on Dame and try and take him out. We're going to need Norman Powell to have a 23-point game. We're going to need Yusuf Nurkic to be mostly efficient in play make and rebound. You know, if we can have those guys doing that when a team tries to take away Dame, it'll come back to them having to take some of the attention off Dame and give it to other guys, and it could allow Dame to get going too. You know what I mean? It's a lot harder to load up on Dame when you have a Nurkic, McCollum, and Norman Powell playing well. So that's what we're gonna need in the playoffs because we've seen teams take away Dame, and we haven't really had an answer for it. I mean, you just look at Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals against Denver in 2019, where Dame's 3 for 17, but we still win the game. Part of it was because we defended well, we held them under 100 points, but part of it is because CJ McCollum has 37 points. Now we have better offensive players than we did in that series. We didn't have Nurkic. We didn't have a Norman Powell type of scorer. Rodney Hood was big in that series, kind of played that role. I think Norman Powell is more suited to play that role than Rodney Hood was back then. So that's what we're going to need in the playoffs if we want to have any sort of run.
Yep, and Reese joined the stream late, I guess, and he asked, did we talk about Brad Stevens not doubling Dame? But this is the problem when you have we had some nice passes to Norm for an open 3. Nurk was open a ton on those rolls and was kicking out to shooters and stuff like that. CJ was open a lot more than he's accustomed to. So when a guy like CJ gets going and then you have a bunch of other players shooting well, it does, like you said, make teams think about double teaming Dame and taking him out of the game. So that helps a lot when we have other players stepping up.
Yeah. Well, also we're not telegraphing ball screens 35, 40 feet away from the rim as we bring the ball up. You know what I mean? We would do that so much against the trap, and they'd be trapping us, and Dame would walk the ball up slowly, and then we'd set him a ball screen 35, 40 feet away from the rim. Then he'd get trapped so far away from the rim that he didn't even really have an outlet. I've diagrammed it on the clipboard many, many times. We're not really doing that. It makes no sense to do that. Like, if a team is trapping, if a team is sagging the big, then sure, set a screen up there and have Dame get a full head of steam running downhill at that big, get that big on his heels, and Dame can run into a 3, run to the 3-point line, hesitate, get the big to come up a little bit, drive by. Like, if they're dropping the big, sure, run a screen there. But when they're trapping there, it's just silly. It's just dumb. We haven't really been doing that as much as we were earlier this season and as much as we have in the past. So I think that maybe if we were doing that a lot, they would have started trapping, but we weren't.
Yeah, and I mean, the Nets trapped Dame a lot, or were trying to at least, and he had a good game. But it'll be interesting to see the teams that really do it well. Especially, once the game slows down in the playoffs, just how we utilize this offensive personnel. Because if it's like we played tonight, I think even with double teams, we can still have a good offense and at least stay with teams that way, even if our defense isn't, great. But if we kind of go back to the same playoff offense we've seen the last few years, that's not going to be good if our defense also struggles. So I'm interested to see once we start playing some of these teams that really try to take away Dame or sell out to take him, what kind of adjustments we'll make. And I hate using that word because I know I won't see many, but I just want to. If they don't play like they've played the last few games in the playoffs, if they revert back to all the crap that got us to the point that we were talking about a week ago, I'm just going to be so mad and frustrated that we wasted another chance to to like do something and to not see the full potential of this team. And I have no faith in that not happening, but I really think this style of play is more suitable for the playoffs.
Yep, I agree. So we're about 2 hours in.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're about at the point where we're going to wrap things up. Is there anything else from this game that you really wanted to dive into?
Nope, just a tough game tomorrow night. This is why I don't like Dame playing so many minutes in the first half of games, because he's obviously going to play a lot of minutes in the second half. So I'd like to get, especially when we have a back-to-back 6 games in 10 days, I would like to see him down around 16, 17 minutes in the first half instead of 19, 20. But other than that, not a whole lot to complain about for this one, or we pointed out most of the positives. So.
Yep, that's going to be a big game for the Blazers. Trae Young is back, but the Hawks have been struggling a little bit lately. I believe they're on a losing streak going into this game. Let me pull up the standings here. The Hawks are currently in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. They just won. They won their last game, but they're at 500 for their last 10. They're 35-30. Nate McMillan has done a good job with that team. So it's another game like this. I mean, they're ahead of Boston in the standings, so this isn't a team to take lightly. I know it's the Hawks, but they're a playoff team this year. They are a talented roster. They got some guys on that team that can really play, and it's going to be a test for our defense going up against Trae Young. You can't drop the big against him. You gotta really contain him at the point of a screen. He's playing 34 minutes a game, giving you 25.5 points per game right now.
And he's small, so in theory, if you have him trapped with both a regular size person and a big person, you should be able to, contest some of those passing lanes and stuff like that. Whereas, we talked about Jokic and LeBron and stuff earlier, how they can pass around those. So in theory, even though he is a really good passer, like Reese points out, you should be able to limit some of his passing angles and stuff like that.
As far as their injuries for this game, Cam Reddish will be out. DeAndre Hunter is also going to be out as well, so that's a big loss for them. He's an underrated player that I feel like a lot of people haven't really caught on to yet. He, in his second year, has had a little bit of a sophomore breakout for them. Tony Snell, who's like insanely efficient this year but doesn't shoot much. He is questionable. Bogdanovic, his status is listed as day-to-day, so I don't know if that means he's going to play or what. But that's their injury report for this game. Do you know Bogdanovic's status?
No, I didn't see, because I have him on one of my fantasy teams. I haven't seen anything. He's been killing it lately, though.
Yeah, he played 36 minutes last game, so I'd expect him to play. You can't drop the big on him. He's a good three-point shooter, can shoot off the dribble. You can't drop the big against Trae Young. John Collins is a guy who pretty talented. They got Clint Capella, who's been insanely good this year. Last game, Clint Capella in 30 minutes had 20 points, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks, 8 for 9 from the field. So that's not going to be an easy matchup for Nurkic. And then off the bench, you got Lou Williams, you got Kevin Huerter, you got Danilo Gallinari. Okongwu's starting to get some minutes, and he's been solid with the time that he's been given. So this is not a team to take lightly. If the Blazers can pick up this win, second half of back-to-back, it'll be an impressive win for sure. And you're looking at being tied with the Mavericks right now, and if the Raptors can pull this out, they're currently up 12 with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter against the Lakers. Then we'll be tied with the Lakers as well if the Raptors can win. So definitely want to keep the wins coming and try and get a 5 or a 6 seed. Don't have to deal with a play-in. Hopefully play the Nuggets in the first round instead of the Clippers at this point. That's kind of the setup for the final 2 weeks of the season.
Yep. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and hope to see you all tomorrow for both shows. Pre-game and post-game. 2
streams tomorrow, picks against the spread, and the post-game show after that. Hawks game, our picks against the spread segment will be on Blazers Uprise Live, which is the shows that we do Mondays and Thursdays over on our second channel. Link should be down in the description box below. Follow us on Twitter at ToryJonesYT for me, at Hoopshock for Eric, at Blazers Uprise YT for the channel. Thank you to my mods, Trevin, Zach, and Reese. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and joined us tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Hope you guys enjoyed the game. This was a fun one. The Blazers pull out the 10-point win over the Boston Celtics. We will catch you tomorrow with 2 streams. Hope to see you then. And until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.